Hello everybody and welcome to Cradletown. This is Dr. Mridula V. Amarnathya. So let's continue with our question and answer series. So let's begin with our first question. So this one of the parent asked me, or rather sent me this question asking, Doctor, I'm a little concerned because we did a scan recently and it showed that the baby was slightly in a lower weight, below the normal expected weight. So what are the risks that would be associated if my child has a low birth weight? Well, like I've told you in my previous question answer series video, that the average birth weight should be around 2.5 kg. I mean, it should be above 2.5 kg. So in India, probably we keep the limit as below 2. So any baby which is below 2 kgs is generally considered as a low birth weight babies. Now these babies are prone to a lot of diseases or infections. Now these children are invariably prone to more infections and they have difficulty in feeding, putting on weight. They have a difficulty to maintain their normal body temperature. Apart from that, you can also consider that these kids have more chances of getting respiratory system infections, the central nervous system, the gastrointestinal system, which is basically the stomach and the intestines, and even their immune system is weak. That is, their body doesn't have the ability to fight against infections. So in these kids, that is, low birth weight kids, they need to have a faster catch-up growth. Okay, but what happens is because they are prematurely born or probably at the low birth weight, their sucking reflexes or their feeding ability is slightly reduced and it becomes very difficult. So, it becomes very difficult to balance both. So generally, most doctors advise them on starting off with assisted feeding, like, either expressing the milk and using a spatula and giving them the milk, some way or the other. It is important that these kids have a rapid growth, or else, they don't have a good immune system. So as a result, they're prone to a lot of infections, which subsequently leads to, one organ of theirs kind of gets affected rapidly. So the more they eat, their growth and development improves. Their body will also start developing that mechanism to fight against all the external environment and the infections. Okay, so that is why we always make sure that, the mother should eat well, have a very good diet, and make sure the mother is also healthy, because it has an impact on the baby too. So this question which a mother asked me was, in case even if I have breast milk, but then my baby is not able to suck my breast milk, then what are the other options? How can I go ahead? Yes, this can be quite a painful situation because you have the milk, because there are a lot of mothers who feel they don't have sufficient amount of milk. But in your case, if you feel that yes, I have enough amount of milk, but then my baby is not sucking enough, then you feel a little upset. So baby might not be sucking because one, it must be a premature baby or a low birth weight baby, and there's muscle weakness, or they're not able to adapt themselves to the sucking reflex. So it takes some time for them to adapt to it and probably develop that reflex. But then till then, there are various ways in which that you can go ahead and make sure that your baby has it. So as a parent, what you could do is you express the milk and then use a spoon and give the milk to your baby. So in this way, the baby doesn't have to suck the milk. That extra effort of sucking is not there. The baby just has to swallow. So it becomes much easier for the baby, as well as, adequate amount of milk also goes into the baby's tummy. But let me tell you, do not make this as a regular habit, because you do not want the baby to be completely out of the sucking mechanism, right? So constantly try. Probably the baby will eventually improve his sucking mechanism. But simultaneously, if you feel that, the baby sleeps off immediately after sucking a little bit of milk, then make sure you express your milk and give it to the baby. So the next question is, how long does it take for the breast milk flow to be satisfactory? So normally if you it takes around 3 days for the proper milk flow to start happening. So generally after the 3rd day, the milk flow is established and it goes well. So generally on an average, if you take by the end, by between 10 to 15 days, most women have a very good milk flow or milk supply. Okay, but it depends on a lot of factors, because the mother is new, the baby is new. They need to have a little of cooperation and understanding. The baby also needs to develop that sucking reflex, everything. So it takes time. So probably between 10 to 15 days, they establish that connection, and then the milk supply or the flow is good and straight or adequate. But there are some times, when probably the parents and the relatives feel that, the baby is not getting enough milk, and they make this decision of, supplementing the baby with either formula feed or cow's milk or buffalo's milk. But let me tell you, it is important that you consult your pediatrician before you start the baby on any other external milk. Do not give up. As a mother, I know it is difficult in case if you have, a sore nipple or an inverted nipple. It takes time. It takes time. Give yourself time. Do not be anxious. Do not be scared. Do not think about what everybody else is telling. Make sure, have a good connection with the baby. It will take time. Just be patient. But eventually you will have that good supply of milk. Okay. But point is, if you start off with all these external sources of milk without your pediatrician's opinion, then there are chances initially it might look very easy, very comfortable for you. But it's the baby who will suffer later on. There are chances that the baby can get, stomach upset, colicky pain, constipation, or even little growth, obesity in the later stage. So you really don't want that. So as much as possible, try giving your breast milk. But if you still feel that, the baby is not getting adequate amount of milk, then you can consult your pediatrician. The pediatrician would recommend the right formula milk that you should give your baby, and then go ahead with it. So the next question is, how often should I feed my newborn baby? Well, the newborn babies have a very small stomach, so the amount of milk that they take in is extremely small. So as a result, mothers need to feed their babies every 1.5 to 2 hours. So that is important. Now, and probably during the night time, I would say every once in 4 hours is perfectly fine. But during the daytime, every once in 1.5 to 2 hours is important. So some mothers tell me that, doctor, my baby sleeps throughout the day. So, I find it very difficult to feed my baby. Well, that is not correct. Wake your baby up. Probably the initial, maximum 7 days, it would be a little difficult, it will be a little challenging for you as well as for the baby. You will have to wake the baby up and feed the baby every 2 hours. After 7 days, trust me, the baby himself or herself will have that regular pattern and will start crying for more milk. Okay, so do not leave the baby, if the baby is not waking up, do not, make sure that allow the baby to sleep more and not give the baby milk for at least 4 hours. That is absolutely not acceptable. Wake the baby up. Make sure you give the baby milk every 2 hours during the daytime and every 4 hours at night. Coming to the next question is, a parent asked me, why do most doctors insist that it's important that you burp the baby every time after a feed? So let me tell you, so when the baby consumes this breast milk, either directly from the breast or if the baby is being bottle fed, along with the consumption of milk, a lot amount of air is also being swallowed. Right. So now since air is lighter than milk, it tends to come up and can be burped out. But what happens in some kids, the air as well as the milk gets mixed up. So when they burp out, a lot amount of milk also comes out. Now what happens if you do not do it, or probably you give milk to the baby and immediately put the baby to bed? What happens is the air gets accumulated into the stomach starts bloating up, and it causes a lot of discomfort to the baby. Okay, and probably the baby will also have this constant sensation of vomiting. The baby, in case if the baby vomits repeatedly, the baby will feel tired, exhausted. The baby will show sort of reluctance to consume, some amount of milk, because the baby is scared, because the baby doesn't know. So he's scared, he really doesn't know what is happening. And this creates a lot of confusion both for the mother as well as for the baby. So it is important that after you feed the baby, hold the baby upright, gently pat their back, gently, so that the milk settles down and then the air rises up, and then after some time the baby will naturally burp. Now some babies, they instantly burp and they're fine with it, but for some baby it takes at least half an hour. So I know it becomes very difficult, but at least most of the time, if you can do it, burp the baby and then put the baby back to the bed, then that is extremely advisable. Probably 1 or 2 times you can skip, because it happens. In spite of trying for half an hour, if the baby doesn't burp, it's fine. But majority of the times, personally, I would recommend that you must take your time. There is nothing else that is more important than your baby at this particular journey, right? So take your time. Make sure you give milk to your baby you burp the baby and only then put the baby back to the bed.